Hi there, welcome to the Google News Initiative Digital Growth Programme. I'm Alistair, I'm a tech trainer and technology journalist, and I've been working in magazines and newspapers since 1987, in fact. I'm going to be your guide for the next 35 minutes or so as we crack through this Google webinar. Now, you may notice on this page there is also a live chat window where my friend and colleague Ramana will be responding to your questions, posting links and to useful tools and resources, and she'll also be keeping me in check for time. So do please feel free to ask questions in the chat, and at the end I'll make some time for a quick Q&A before wrap up. So we're talking 40 minutes absolute maximum for the whole session. So let's get going, shall we? Here you can see a drone's eye view of the whole program of sessions. And here we are in the middle in the orange colored set of workshops. This is the data management workshop, and we're down at the bottom there, Web Vitals. That's what we're going to cover out. Now, in addition to the data management workshop, you can see there are other workshops running. So we've already run those on looking at building digital publishing business strategies, developing and engaging your digital audience. Coming up later this week, we have sessions on earning revenue from ads and from readers and so on. So do look out for those. Make sure you're signed up and going to be attending those. Don't want to miss out. So there you go. Now, first, let me make clear what I'm not going to try and do on this session. I know these are Google sessions, but we're not telling you your business. You're a publishing business. Only you know your organization, your resources, your readers better than you. So it's not what we're trying to do. You could be a small emerging publisher, a medium-sized organization. You might already be a large established publisher, and you're just trying to fill gaps in your digital strategy. So wherever you're coming from for this session, welcome. All we want to do here is share with you things such as online tools, resources, case studies, find out what other publishers have done to drive up readership and revenues, find out what tools they've been using, see if we can use them as well, and also always looking at new technologies that are coming up that might be worth looking out for. So what actual actions and next steps you want to take, entirely up to you. So based on your needs, your experience and your resources. So that's the plan. Okay, with all that in mind, let's get going. Now, why are we doing this? So what? Well, the whole session I'm going to look at is going to be all about time and waiting. Well, that seemed like a really long time doing nothing, but it was only about 10 seconds, just to show you how annoying it is to make people wait. So here's our 3 areas of focus. I'm going to give you a gentle, quick reminder of the importance of speed in terms of page loading time, the overall performance of your website for loading pages, and how long people will wait before going off and doing something else. Then I want to turn to the main focus of this session, which is something called Web Vitals, especially the core Web Vitals. It's a group of reports from Google that pulls out information from your website, from your data, and makes actionable recommendations on how to speed things up. And then we'll look more closely at some of those actions you can take, and of course case studies on other publishers who have tried this. So let's start with the first one, a gentle, polite reminder of the importance of page speed. You already know it matters. I just want to remind us all why it matters. Then we'll take a look at what we can do about it. Now, the average mobile site, so literally a website on as seen in a browser on a mobile phone, typically, apparently, it's found to load in about 6.9 seconds, so just short of 7 seconds. However, according to survey data, 40% of consumers, so this is not just for news, for anybody, will leave a page if it takes longer than 3 seconds to load. So already at 7 seconds, we've more than doubled that. They've already gone. 79% of users who were dissatisfied with site performance, so page load speed, actually said they were less likely, straight away, less likely to visit the same site again. So the impact on user experience isn't minimal. In fact, the speed that it takes for a page to load, as you can see from the results of the survey here, people feel that it's more important to them than anything else, including how easy it is to find what they're looking for, whether it fits on screen, how pretty it looks. All of those come second to the speed. That's how important it is. So that's what we're going to focus on. Now we have to think about that speed in what happens after 1 second, what happens after 2 seconds, because people will do different things. And again, there have been lots of studies on this. When an overall page load time is between 1 second to 3 seconds, if it takes up to 3 seconds compared with, say, 1 second, that'd be ideal, but hey, the probability of a bounce, so someone going and just leaving again, increases by apparently 32%. So you think, okay, I might live with that. However, when the overall load time goes from 1 to 10 seconds, that increases your chance of a bounce by 123%. So exponentially increases the chance of people going away doing their own thing. And we're just talking mobile traffic here. And again, well, mobile traffic, for a lot of us, if not most of us, is always lagging behind desktop sites in terms of key engagement metrics, such as average time on site, pages per visit. So there's always places, opportunities to improve. Now, Pinterest, over 3 months, Pinterest spent time rebuilding its mobile web experience. So largely this is for how it looks, user experience, UI, and so on. And in doing so, took that opportunity to reduce load times by a good 6 seconds. So its mobile web rewrite led to a whole other secondary improvements in performance in their core business metrics. So they found, simply by doing that, making things load faster, time spent on the site went up 40% compared with what they were experiencing on their old mobile web experience. User-generated ad revenue went up 44%. Core engagements went up 60%. Now, I've got more case studies for you. Wired magazine online. It found that it had vast numbers of stories, kind of historical stories on its website over its 24-year archive. There's like in excess of 100,000 stories. And they knew they had to deal with the speed of access. So it chose to use a framework known as accelerated mobile pages. It's not a special it's not a special technology or system. It's just a series of good practices suggested by Google and others for optimizing web pages for viewing sites on a mobile device, so AMP. We cover it in more depth in another session. They took advantage of this to try and speed things up, and it worked for them. They came back and said they saw an increase in click-through rates from search results of about 25% and increased click-through rates on ads in their AMP optimized stories of about 63%. So now that's our gentle reminder of what we're trying to achieve. Let's move on to the main section of this session, which is, okay, now that we know why speed is important, we knew it was important, but now we know why, what can we do about it? How can we find out how fast or slow we are? Well, we're going to be running some vital reports. We call them Web Vitals. So Web Vitals, it's an initiative from Google to provide unified guidance for quality signals that would help you deliver, one hopes, a better user experience on the web on a mobile device. So it's a measure of metrics for a healthy site. Now, Google's obviously provided a load of tools over the years to measure and report on performance. Some developers are experts at using these tools. Others have found the abundance of tools and metrics a bit challenging to keep up with. So site owners shouldn't really have to be performance gurus to understand the quality and experience they're delivering to their users, and in our case, readers. So the Web Vitals initiative aims to simplify the landscape, help sites focus on the metrics that matter most. So this is core Web Vitals. Now, let's focus on the core ones next. I've highlighted them in red down at the bottom of this slide. So core Web Vitals, they don't work in isolation, as there are a whole load of other metrics, but we are going to pick them out. So some of the metrics that are coming back are based on controlled lab tests. Others are metrics that only work with live field data. What Web Vitals does is provides you with a mix of both in one fell swoop. The field data, incidentally, is not sourced from your site as such. It's generally, so it needs to set kind of benchmark levels. So it uses something called the Chrome User Experience Report, or CRUX, as we call it. It provides user experience metrics for how real-world Chrome users experience popular destinations on the web. That's the idea. So it's a data set powered by real users, and the metrics collected are aggregated anonymously from users who have opted into this. Anyway, after doing a lot of research, Google determined this set called Web Vitals. It's a combination of metrics we already know, plus a set of new ones. And there are three core Web Vitals, and I want to kind of drill down in, look at them next. Now, unfortunately, they have three-letter acronyms. Well, they're not really acronyms, they're just spelt out. But here we go, LCP, FID, CLS. You can see them at the bottom here. Don't you love this? Don't worry, I shall repeat them over and over again until we learn them. So the metrics that core Web Vitals will evolve over time, but currently here are the three. Now, in normal words, we talk about loading time, interaction time, visual stability. So loading is LCP, interaction, FID, visual stability, CLS. See, we've forgotten them already. Well, let's go through them one by one and get a better understanding of what they measure and what they're telling us. So LCP stands for largest contentful paint. So this measures the point at which the largest content element on a web page appears on the user's screen. Now, keep in mind, it doesn't measure the time it takes for your page to fully load. It simply looks at when the most important part of that page loads. So to have a good user experience, a site should aim for an LCP, so largest contentful paint, an LCP rating to occur within the first 2.5 seconds of someone arriving on a page. So if you have a simple web page with just text and a large image, obviously the large image will be the largest contentful paint object that it'll be timing. Okay, just makes sense. It might be as simple as that. So if you wanted to improve speed, you would just make sure your images are optimized. So they're smaller file size, less to download, speed up the page. Now, we've had other measurements in the past that were used instead, such as a first meaningful content and so on, but largest contentful paint, it's quite easy to understand. Simply the time it takes for the largest element on a page to appear. Now, that element could be an image, it might be a video, could be other types of content. Now, it can be dynamic, so the first thing that loads on a page may not be immediately the large image. So LCP will shift to the large image as soon as it appears on the screen. So that was largest contentful paint, LCP. That's the biggest thing to load, how long does that take? Let's move on to the next Web Vital, Core Web Vital. This is FID. This stands for First Input Delay. It's about interaction. So first input delay, Core Web Vital metric. It captures a user's first impression of a site's interactivity and responsiveness. So it measures the time from when a user, a reader, a visitor to your site, first interacts with a page to the time when the browser is actually able to respond to that interaction. So FID, first input delay, it's a field metric, can't be simulated in a lab. It's a real user interaction, and it's required in order to measure the response delay. So an example could be the page says, oh, click on this link to do something, or click on this button to make something happen, and they tap on the screen and nothing happens for a while. And they might tap again. They might not. They may just leave the page and do something else. Or if you had a search field and they go, oh yeah, I'm going to search for a story. While the page is still loading, they tap into the search field. How long does it take before like the cursor's blinking or the search field is active? It's the first input delay. Because if they're waiting, they just go and leave. The third Core Web Vital we were going to look at is this one, CLS. It stands for Cumulative Layout Shift. Great band from the 1970s, I think, but Cumulative Layout Shift. It's all about visual stability. It's a brand new metric. It tries to determine how stable stuff loads onto your screen. It looks at how often stuff jumps around while loading and by how much. So you can imagine what happens when someone lands on your page. They've been invited to, I don't know, scroll through and read or tap on something. And in the meantime, something else that's big is still loading. And by the time they've started scrolling or they've decided to tap on something, suddenly something else has appeared on the site and the button they were going to tap on has shifted off screen, or the text they were reading has gone up or down or moved away or changed size or something like this. So cumulative layout shift. Now, it's really frustrating and really annoying, especially if it happens again and again and again and again, or someone's trying to read a story, it keeps jumping up and down and up, and they'll leave. Okay, so these layout shifts can have, we can point the blame at lots of different places. It happens a lot with ads, let's face it. Now, ads are a lifeline for many sites. It may not be a choice of saying, right, we'll have no ads, but it's the way in which they load can be frustrating to users. So in addition, many complex sites have so much going on the pages that the page itself gets top heavy and content just gets loaded constantly, shifting things around. So this can also result in this constant shifting, jumping around the screen, making room for slower loading content later in unexpected places. So it's felt that to provide a better experience for readers, you would want to have a cumulative layout shift rating or a score of 0.1. We'll come back to that later, what these scores mean. Okay, so there were the three core vitals. I'm going to go over them again, don't worry, and remind you what they are and what they stand for. Are you ready to start using them? Hope so. So you can run them. You can run and see how well your website is running right now. So you can see how your website performs, then allow Web Vitals to offer you tips on how you might improve your site improve your user experience. So, and you'd want to kind of sign in from time, and check your progress over time. So running Web Vitals on your site it's just straightforward. You put your site's URL in and see how well it performs across all its audits. You'd have to give it some time and it'll come back with a report. You would want to see what matters. So you want to see your site's performance across all the areas that you care about. And then you want to get these insights back. So it will provide you with some suggestions and tips for improving those core Web Vital areas. So each test comes with helpful steps to improve your site's results. Now, to get there, you can get information on the measure the measurements and the metrics that Web Vitals is using. And I'll just remind you again, Romana will be posting links to these various areas for you to check out in the chat as we go through. So, which takes us on, okay, so we've looked at what Web Vitals and the core Web Vitals are. What are these recommended actions? Even before I actually click on some of the links and start looking at the playbooks and suggestions and the detail online, I'm here right now. Can I tell you what some of those recommended actions might be? Okay, we'll do that now. This will be our third topic of the session. So Google has loads of tools. I hope you're remembering everything that you can see on this slide. I'll be testing you later. Nah, don't worry. It's just a little guide of the complexity that underpins it all, but simplified on the top level where we're working. So there are a lot of tools. Web Vitals is mostly not new. It's a combination of existing tools plus a couple of new reports. They're all based on the same core engine, though, using the same data sources. Now, most lab tools are powered by the thing you can see down the bottom left, the red thing marked Lighthouse engine. Whereas Chrome usage statistics, which is again at the bottom in the middle, and something called WebPerf APIs, power pretty much all the field data. Just note, WebPerf APIs, it's not a Google-owned system, but it all works together into Web Vitals in the end. So Web Vitals brings together lots of other tools that already exist. So your Search Console, Page Speed Insights, Chrome Dev Tools, and so on. You don't have to remember all of those, just to say Lighthouse brings it together and makes it easier to understand. So what does Lighthouse do? Top level, it analyzes web apps and web pages, collects modern performance metrics, and provides insights on developer best practices. So the performance score is a weighted average of the metric scores. Now, naturally, more heavily weighted metrics have a bigger effect on your overall performance score. So the metric scores are not visible in the report. They're just calculated under the hood for you, and you just get the result. Now, the weightings are chosen to provide what we think is a balanced representation of the user's perception of performance. Now, these kind of weightings, they've changed over time, and they will continue to change over time, because the Lighthouse team is regularly doing research, gathering feedback to understand what at any time has the biggest impact on user perceptions of performance. So let's have a look at some of these. Now, the top level recommendations coming from Web Vitals are these three. So we've been through them once already. They all have three-letter acronyms. Do you remember what they are? So summarizing, they are looking at loading times, interactivity, visual stability. So how long does the biggest thing on the page take to load? Second one, interactivity. How long do you make your visitors wait before they can actually interact with buttons and fields that are on that page? And visual stability. So how much and by how far are things moving around as they load and irritate your visitors? So those are the three areas. We're going to go over them again. LCP was your largest contentful paint, the loading of the biggest item on the page. Remember that? So this is affected by a number of factors, and you might want to consider them. So slow server response times. So what would you do? Well, you'd optimize your server, use a content delivery network, cache your assets, something, I don't know. What else could cause this? Maybe you've got some JavaScript and cascading star sheets that are kind of render blocking. Well, you'd then want to minimize your CSS, defer non-critical style sheets until later, and so on. If you have slow loading resources, well, you would optimize your images. You might preload some resources, compress text files, I don't know. You may have issues on client-side rendering. especially on, say, ads. So you'd want to think about minimizing critical JavaScript, use server-side rendering, pre-rendering, and so on. Anyway, there are a lot of opportunities for dealing with issues that would perhaps give you a poor score for this LCP, largest contentful paint. So remember, anything that's 2.5 seconds or faster is good. Anything that's 2.5 seconds up to 4 seconds, there's probably room for improvement. Beyond 4 seconds, there will be a rating saying this is poor, this is possibly too long, especially on mobile. People are going to leave. So if you want more information on that, see it straight away. A link is showing on this slide, and perhaps Romana could get that copied into the chat. So looking at LCP specifically, if you want to look at the detail on that. Now, the second item was FID. Do you remember this? First input delay, the interaction responsiveness. It's a new metric. And the suggestion is making visitors on your site wait too long before they can interact with things they should be able to tap on. It's seen as a bad thing. And they reckon an FID rating of shorter than 100 milliseconds is good. Okay, it's ideal. It's something we can aspire to. Something between 100 and 300 milliseconds. So you tap on something, how long until it actually comes and works? You tap into a search field. Can you see the cursor? So 100 to 300 milliseconds, yeah, that's good too, but you could speed that up. Beyond 300 seconds or longer, nah, it's considered poor and needs fixing. Now, JavaScript is often the culprit if your site has poor FID, first input delay ranking. It can lead to slow websites, generally, with complex code. And often the browser can't respond to input until the whole JavaScript has been executed. So if you've got JavaScript in any great quantity, and you have developers who can work on it, get them to work on it. Break up complex tasks is the easy thing to do. Optimize the page for interaction readiness. Use a piece of JavaScript that runs in the background, a web worker. Remove unused, unnecessary code for a page. And just do anything you can to reduce JavaScript execution time. If you don't have a team of web developers and you're using JavaScript on the pages, has there been an update to those JavaScript? You've taken them off the shelf. Is there an update that is leaner, meaner, faster loading? You want to find out now. So there is a link on this slide where you can get much more detailed developer level information on first input delay. And maybe Romana will paste that in. So that's for interactive readiness. And on to the third one, CLS. Do you remember the CLS? Cumulative layout shift. Cumulative layout shift. So things moving around after the page has already started loading. Now, Google ranks anything with a score lower or a score underneath 0.1 as good. I know it sounds inverted, but there you go. Smaller numbers are better. Anything from 0.1 to 0.25 as a ranking is good as well, but there are opportunities to improve that. Anything above 0.25 is regarded as difficult, a poor score in terms of user friendliness. Now, I mentioned this before, badly optimized ads can be a major contributor to a poor CLS score. Now, these can be, coded in overweight JavaScript or served from an external server, which itself is maybe running slow and slowing down the loading of your pages. And all of this just adds slowness at every step. In the meantime, you're trying hard to get your ads to appear in the right spot at the right moment. Now, let's not just blame ads. So ordinary everyday content can come into this. And if you have your web pages that are designed to be responsive and adaptive to screen size and orientation, well, this can be a contributing factor to slowness. Well, not just slowness, but this layout shift. Developers don't always specify the width and height of an image in the code. They leave it up to the browser to figure out how the image should appear on the screen. Text appears in the web browser first, followed by images. And if the web developer hasn't reserved space for the images, this can cause text that's already appeared to be shifted down by the image once it's loaded. Quite possibly after the reader's already started reading. Immensely annoying. So try to specify the width and height of your images in CSS is going to help. And you can use percentages. You don't have to use actual pixel values, of course. So you can reserve the space they need as the page, before the page and everything else loads. Anyway, on top of this, downloading and rendering web fonts can also be a bit of a drag and make text shift, reflow, and so on. And there are ways of tackling this in CSS. You can use font display and font loading APIs. I'm not going to go into that. Okay, but just remember, CLS only relates to unexpected shifts. If something's meant to move, so people know tapping on a menu button gives you a cascading menu, if they know that's going to happen, pushes everything down, then that doesn't count against you with a bad CLS score. But just make sure, your visitors do understand that, okay? Because if it's unexpected, it might count against you. So the question here, do you think you're suffering from a development bottleneck? It's all well and good knowing where the problems might lie, but does your development team, if you have one, know where to get started in fixing them? Well, to that end, you can get Lighthouse to bring you bespoke recommendations and suggestions through something we call stack packs. Stack packs, they allow this Lighthouse platform to detect what platform your site's built on, and it displays specific recommendations based on that. So in addition to generalized advice, you get additional messages that will help kind of explain how you might go about addressing certain audits with tools that have been detected being used on a website. So there are also framework-specific recommendations that might help if you don't have a massive team, but your website is based on WordPress regardless. You'll get suggestions for those kind of sites as well. So they become bespoke recommendations you can apply depending upon the size and nature of your site. There's also community support available. So you go, oh, I love these suggestions. I'd love to find out more. Where do all these suggestions and advice come from? Well, it's coming from a community of experts who really do know their stuff. So using Web Vitals will give you access to this community. So they can be found linked directly from your Web Vitals report. So armed with this, the idea is then if you've got questions, you can join that community, throw something out there and see what kind of responses, answers you get back. Basically, you join this expansive knowledge and development support network. Why not? Just finally, I'm going to round this off in a tick, but it's the elephant in the room, as it were. It's not really an elephant. Everyone actually says it to me straight away. But we've got 5G coming along. Why are we bothered about mobile speed? Everything's going to get faster. Well, depending on who you are, where you live, what handset you've got, and where the nearest transmitter is, your experience of 5G may be different from mine. But the promise of a super fast 5G network remains that. Exactly that, a promise for the time being, for the near future. It's not going to reach the bulk of your readers anytime soon, not really. And if you've experienced it like I had, you almost have to be in line of sight of the transmitter to use it anyway. So unless you want to hang outside your window and use it, good luck. No, more the suggestion would be, every time networks get faster, web developers then just pack more into the bandwidth. So more functionality, bigger and better features, but they just then slow everything down with larger payloads, and we're back where we started. So gentle suggestion from me is, why don't we just focus on the here and now? What we do know is that speed matters now. So yeah, this is why Google's quite excited about the opportunity for us to share this new set of kind of reported metrics, core web vitals, in helping people like yourselves get a different type of insight into how you might want to go about, improving, optimizing, I think, site performance for your readers. Now, here are some people. I'll just quickly whiz through these little case studies. So here we have SueToday.com. So they noticed that readers visited the site, visited a low number of pages per visit. They wanted to know why. So they investigated the issue and they put it down to speed. So most of their pages were taking more than 6 seconds to load. So they redirected their focus on page speed. The theory was, at the root of their low engagement numbers was, driving readers away because they were just not prepared to wait for pages to load after just one page. They implemented a strategy of speed adjustments on their mobile pages, and a year later, they were able to say, we've dropped that page loading speed from 6 seconds to 1 second. I mean, it's quite impressive. So by then, they were seeing nearly a 20% increase in overall visits to their site, 4% increase in pages visited per session. Okay, nothing to get, very happy to get that, and a 6% decrease in bounce rate, basically. So it was, for them, it was a worthwhile exercise that was proven in the end. Now, the FT also did this. They wanted to redesign their mobile pages, their website as well, and they took this opportunity of the redesign to really focus on the speed at which their mobile pages were going to be delivered. So they found they were, checking their core web vitals, they were able to kind of doubly improve their speed index, and the results they came back is they got nearly 60% more conversions, so people going all the way through to subscriptions, nearly 50% rise in daily active users, and a really healthy 2.3-fold increase in organic traffic. So people were arriving and staying through optimization of those pages. GQ, well, I think we mentioned it before, is, they've had this vast 24-year back catalogue of stories, and they were, when they'd first set up access to these back catalogue of stories, they were, they found the pages were still running on really old stuff. Every page was taking 7 seconds or so to load, and people, weren't just lingering. It just become bogged down with ads, server-loaded elements, autoplay, obsolete stuff, redundant features. So site redesign, great opportunity to clear out all the clutter. And that's what they did. They saw calls to the server reduced by 400%, migrated to a single in-house content management platform, article pages decluttered. So they saw page load times reduced by 80%. So under 2 seconds, basically. Good score. Interaction rate rose by over 100%. Unique visitors went up from just under 6 million to just below 8 million. And the Sun, this is the last one I'll give you. The Sun website, its current form launched only in 2016, and they were really pushing it. They wanted to become the largest digitally read news publication in the UK. Anyway, since then, the engineering team on the Sun, it's been focusing on brand building, okay, and keeping up with the demands of a busy newsroom. But they ran an audit on the website, and they could see the results coming back, telling them that the mobile pages needed to be accelerated. They needed to deal with the user experience there. So the Sun actually collaborated with the Google News Initiative to achieve better performance metrics, deliver better kind of speed user experience across its web and mobile sites. And for them, after doing this, they saw 66% increase in organic search traffic, 30% decrease, get that the right way around, in bounce rate. So big change there. So we're coming to the end. Just to summarize what we did, we looked at 3 O's, a gentle reminder of how important it is to make things fast, especially on handheld devices. Then I introduced you to this Web Vitals and the core Web Vitals, and we finished off by looking at each of those and what type of things is it looking for and the type of things that we could do to enhance the mobile experience for our readers. So do we have any questions? I'm going to turn to my little screen down here. Was Romana gathering questions that people wanted to pose right now? So I'm just having a little look through. And hey, you're making my life easy but less interesting by not asking me difficult questions. Okay, so no worries. That still puts us in good time. So if you do have any questions and they come to you later, you can join us for our round table session, which is coming up very shortly. Before I explain that, can I just remind you that this session was just one element of the whole digital growth program. And this was the last one. We've just finished of the data management stream. Following this, starting tomorrow, we have a stream looking at advertising revenue. So you may, hopefully you're booked on some of those because we've referred to advertising and optimizing adverts and so on. So that we've got sessions dedicated on that. And also, hey, we all want to make money. You're probably had your interest piqued with regards to how can we optimize things to get more money directly through our readers, through subscriptions and other models. There's an overview on that as well. Beyond this, I mentioned just a moment ago, we're holding a round table. So this is coming up very shortly in about 20 minutes, where instead of me just talking at you as a talking head, we can get together. There is a Google Meet where we can talk face-to-face interactively, you and me. And also Romana will be joining us on screen. So the three of us, no, only joking, can get together so you can pose your questions directly or discuss between all the other attendees, share stories, and interact directly. So that's the round table coming up. It says deep dives here, but it should be, say, a round table. We also, as part of the Google News Initiative, we have a lab section of the site where you can access more videos, access more tools and resources, tutorials. So do check out the lab section. A link to that should be appearing in your chat any moment now. And lastly, but not least, a link will be appearing in the chat asking you to give us your feedback on this session or any of the other sessions. Let us know how it went for you. It's a short survey. I hope that's okay. Please do fill that out. It's the only way we're going to improve these sessions in future. Now, if you're going to join us for the round table shortly, I shall see you then. Otherwise, if you can't come for that, no worries. Thanks for joining us. And I do look forward to seeing you again very soon. Take care now.